Recent headlines about a fatal accident on a movie set have sent shockwaves around the world. It's an unthinkable tragedy, actors and crew believing they are safe in a carefully created world only to discover that a deadly weapon lay hidden in plain sight. What was supposed to be a harmless prop gun became a tool of destruction in the hands of an unsuspecting actor. For some of you, the recent accident on the set of Alec Baldwin's Western film Rust is the first time you've heard of such a tragedy. But for many, we recall another time this happened to a young, bright, promising actor named Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee was born on February 1st, 1965 in Oakland, California. His father, of course, was none other than the legendary martial arts expert and actor Bruce Lee. Brandon spent his early childhood in Hong Kong, where his father was pursuing lead movie roles to showcase in Hollywood after finding some success on the television show The Green Hornet. Whilst living in Hong Kong with his mother, Linda, and his younger sister, Shannon, Brandon was often invited to visit the sets of his father's films. Bruce Lee became a star with films like The Big Boss, The Way of the Dragon, and Enter the Dragon, earning him accolades in Asia and America. Brandon was enamored with the film industry and studied martial arts alongside his father until Bruce's untimely death when Brandon was just 8 years old. The grief-stricken Lee family returned to Linda's hometown of Seattle before moving around the West Coast. Brandon struggled throughout his adolescence, mourning the loss of his father whilst simultaneously despising living in the shadow of a legend. As a teenager, he was often in trouble and dropped out of high school several times. Yet those closest to Brandon recall his larger-than-life soul, his fierce protectiveness of his younger sister, and his love of capturing an audience's attention. Brandon's sister Shannon recalls that he convinced his mum to let him keep a kitten. Brandon and Shannon had a fort in their backyard, complete with a padlock to keep Linda out. One day, Linda was walking past the fort when she heard a meowing coming from inside. She ventured inside to find a little kitten that Brandon had been keeping there. Brandon told her, "Oh my God, Mum, you're never going to believe this. I was walking home from school and I found this kitten. It was near death. It was in the gutter. It was all dirty. It had ants crawling on it. I didn't know if it was going to live. So I brought it home and cleaned it up. And I was just keeping it in my fort. I honestly had no idea if it was going to live or not. But I think he's going to make it. He looks okay." Convinced her sweet son had rescued a kitten and nursed it back to health, Linda agreed to keep the cat, naming him Samson for his strength. It wasn't until years later that Brandon would reveal the kitten was one of a litter from a friend's house, and he had duped his mum into letting him keep it. Shannon says this is just one example of Brandon's natural acting skill and undeniable charm. Brandon put on his own plays, copying down word-for-word transcripts of his favorite Twilight Zone episodes and directing them with friends at school. Lee was also a voracious reader, devouring books and always carrying a pocket dictionary to look up unknown words. Despite his struggles with school, Brandon earned a perfect score on the English portion of his SATs. He kept journals and wrote letters, but also loved to play jokes and play daredevil, with him regularly nursing injuries from skiing accidents and skateboard crashes on rickety ramps he built in the backyard. He loved nature and went on many camping trips with his mum and sister, a hobby that would carry on through his adulthood. After graduating high school, Lee spent a semester at Emerson College in Boston, studying drama before dropping out to pursue acting independently. Being the son of Bruce Lee opened many doors for the young actor, though he was talented in his own right. Brandon also resumed his martial arts training, a skill he hadn't honed since his father's death. He trained at the Inosanto Academy with Dan Inosanto, a disciple of his father's. Lee became proficient in Muay Thai and Jeet Kune Do, a hybrid martial arts style conceived by his late father. Lee enjoyed martial arts, but it was not a passion. He viewed it as a way to increase his castability and often brought cameras with him to the dojo to see what moves translated best to screen. The late 80s brought Lee a steady stream of action roles, a full-length television movie, Kung Fu the Movie, a Hong Kong crime action thriller called Legacy of Rage, and the straight-to VHS Laser Mission. He also met with Marvel's Stan Lee about a possible starring role in a television or film adaptation of the comic book hero Shang-Chi. Although he was maintaining a steady stream of work and drawing the attention of many Hollywood producers, Lee longed to break away from the action genre. He didn't want to be a duplicate of his father. He wanted serious roles and critical success. In 1991, Lee was approached to play his father in the biopic Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. Though it would offer him a chance to cross genres, Lee ultimately rejected the role, finding it too awkward to play his father. Still, he spent many hours with actor Jason Scott Lee preparing him to play the role. Lee starred opposite Dolph Lundgren in the buddy cop action film Showdown in Little Tokyo in 1991 and Rapid Fire in 1992, the later debuting at number 3 in the US box office. Its 19-week run in theaters introducing Brandon Lee to the world. During this time, Lee met Eliza Hutton at director Rennie Harlin's office, where she worked as a personal assistant. The pair had a whirlwind romance, moving in together in 1991 and getting engaged in 1992. When Lee was approached about starring in The Crow while doing publicity for Rapid Fire, the pair decided to get married in Mexico following the film's completion. For Brandon, The Crow was a breakthrough. He was given the lead role of Eric Draven, a musician raised from the dead by a supernatural crow to avenge his death and the murder of his fiancée. The part was dark and dramatic. Lee studied the character intensely and brought many of his ideas to the film's executives. Most importantly, it was agreed that Draven would do no conventional martial arts moves in the movie. Instead, Lee worked with stunt coordinator Jeff Imada to create a unique fighting style that portrayed his character's supernatural abilities. Lee devoted himself entirely to preparing for this breakthrough role, going on a strict diet and starting an intense physical fitness regimen to lose bulk quickly. Before filming his resurrection scene, Lee submerged himself in ice, having decided the act of resurrection would have felt freezing cold. Lee would also soak himself with cold water before filming rain scenes and act shirtless in the cold North Carolina weather. The cast and crew of The Crow were impressed by his dedication and enchanted by his performance. Filming The Crow left Lee exhausted. It was a grueling filming schedule that took place mostly at night and outdoors in below freezing temperatures. He would wake up at 4 in the afternoon, work all night, and then collapse into bed at 9 a.m. On top of that, the production was plagued by a series of accidents, including the near electrocution of a carpenter and a severe storm that inflicted damage to the sets. By the end of March, however, most of the difficulties had passed. The film was set to wrap on April the 8th, and Lee's last week of shooting mainly consisted of flashback scenes to Draven's life, meaning no heavy makeup and no rain-soaked middle-of-the-night shoots. After filming his final scenes, Lee and fiancée Eliza would fly to Mexico to be married on April the 17th. On the evening of March 30th, Brandon stopped at Wilmington's Fitness Today Health Club for a workout before heading to Carolco Studios for filming. He spent about a half an hour on the Stairmaster and then lifted some light barbells before chatting with the club's owner about his upcoming wedding and taking his leave. That night, Lee was filming his character's death scene on Carolco's Soundstage 4. At the studio, he went through hair and makeup and was on set by the early hours of March 31st. The script called for Draven to enter the apartment he shared with his fiancée, holding a bag of groceries. Draven would find his fiancée had been raped and beaten at the hands of a group of violent thugs. who then fire a revolver at Draven. To complete the illusion, a small explosive charge would go off in a grocery bag, mimicking the impact of a bullet. Actor Michael Massey, who played the character Funboy, aimed and fired a .44 Magnum Smith & Wesson Model 629 at Lee. A crew of about 100 people looked on as the squib in the grocery bag detonated and Lee fell to the ground. There were smiles and nods amongst the crew. It looked great, but would need to be reshot as Lee had fallen backward instead of forwards, as was outlined in the script. As the crew began to reset the scene, however, Lee failed to get up. At first, those on set thought he may have been playing a prank, but it quickly became apparent this wasn't the case. Stuntman Jeff Imada ran over to check on Lee and found him unconscious and breathing heavily. He was then quickly rushed to Wilmington's New Hanover Medical Center, where a dollar-sized entry wound was found in Lee's abdomen. Despite 6 hours of surgery, Brandon Lee was pronounced dead at 1:04 p.m. on March the 31st, 1994. His fiancée, Eliza Hutton, by his side. He was just 28 years old. Although conspiracy theorists jumped at the chance to revive decades-old rumors tied to Bruce Lee's sudden death, including the Chinese mafia and a group of angry organized criminals with ties to the Hong Kong entertainment industry, the truth behind Brandon's demise was much more mundane and preventable. The weapon that killed Lee had been previously used to film close-up shots of the character's death. During that shoot, the gun had been loaded with improperly made, improvised dummy rounds. This would allow the crew to capture close-ups of normal-looking ammunition. Unknown to those on set that day, a piece of the dummy bullet had become lodged in the gun barrel. Before Lee filmed his final scene, the dummy cartridges were replaced with blank rounds, containing a powder charge and a primer, but no bullet, allowing the gun to fire with sound and flash, but no projectile. However, the weapon was not checked before use, and when Michael Massey pulled the trigger, the dummy bullet lodged in the barrel was propelled out by the blank, striking Lee in the abdomen and lodging near his spine. The shooting death of Brandon Lee was ruled an accident, and his mother and fiancé both pushed for completion of The Crow. Lee's face was digitally added to a body double for the remaining scenes, and the writers changed the cause of death, having Tintin throw a knife at him before he is dragged to the center of the room, shot by Funboy, and tossed out of a window. The original studio behind the film, Paramount Pictures, bowed out, uneasy with marketing a film tied to the lead actor's death, and several other studios declined before Miramax picked it up. The film proved to be a box office success and remains a fan favorite with high ratings on Rotten Tomatoes and drew comparisons to the likes of Tim Burton's Batman and Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. Following her son's death, Linda Lee Caldwell sued the studio for negligence, claiming the dummy bullets used in the gun had been made by crew members who were either too lazy or too over budget to purchase the correct ammunition. Linda ultimately settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. After Lee's death, there was an increased sense of urgency regarding firearm safety on movie sets. Still, it eventually fizzled out, and Brandon Lee's story morphed from preventable tragedy to freak accident in Hollywood's collective memory. It wasn't until the death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of Rust nearly 3 decades later that interest in Lee rekindled, and a call for stricter safety measures on set was taken back up. Both Brandon's family and fiancé have spoken out in the wake of the Rust tragedy, expressing their condolences to Hutchins' family and reiterating their belief that gun deaths on movie sets are entirely avoidable and preventable. Some are still quick to point out the similarities between Brandon and his father, Bruce Lee, both promising actors, hit their stride before becoming tragically struck down in their prime. But Brandon's family urges you to continue to respect and remember them as they were individually. Brandon was his father's son, but he was so much more. Artistic, funny, goofy, and soulful. We'll leave you here with an excerpt from Brandon's journal, written during a camping trip in Northern California. Gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. The sun is out. The sky is blue. Few black clouds mar the horizon. Time passes slow up here. I will make a concerted effort to concentrate on it alone. Thank you for watching, and I hope you're enjoying the content on this new channel. If you'd like another Stars story, let us know which in the comments section below. Right then, take care, and I'll see you next time with another story to make you say, well, I never.